Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. My track guide for the FF1600 going around Navarra, the speed layout. Let's get into it. In qualifying, you want to be all the way on the left. Turn 1 is flat out though, just make sure that you don't waste meters, so go close into the corner. Now go out to the left side of the track. 2 and 3 is a tricky combination. We don't want to be braking too hard to take out too much speed, and we do want to brake enough so we slow down the car enough. And we have to look at them like one big section. I try and brake when I lose the pole here on the right out of my FOV. Not being too hard, going to about 50% brake pressure. Just trying to keep the car stable, going close into the curb. Going down through the gears, tracking out to open turn 3. And going in for a bit of a later apex on turn 3. Once I'm close to the curb, I'll start to apply the throttle again. And using all of the room I need on the outside. Turn 4 is flat out. Just make sure that you cut the curb. And go all the way out on the curb on the outside. You won't get a 1x, so it will help open up turn 5. For turn 5, I do brake a little. Once I get to where the white line expands, I'll be on the brake for just about 30% and quickly off it again. I do this to get close into the curb. And just before I get on the curb, I'll apply the throttle again because we want the car to walk out on the right side of the track. For turn 6 and 5, I start to brake when I get on line with the green part of the track out here on the right side, aiming for about 50% brake pressure, easing that off while still tracking out towards the curb, then finally keeping a bit of pressure all the way to the inside curb. Once I get to the curb on the inside, I'll apply the throttle again. For this one, I'm a little bit too aggressive, so I have to back off the throttle again to make sure I don't get a 1x. And of course, you can use all of the room here on the outside. Just get in before the grass comes. For turn 8, we want to go out and open up the corner going onto the curb here. I don't have the clearest braking marker, but I try and brake when I lose the wall here on the right. Aiming for about 70% brake pressure, easing that off all the way to the curb on the inside. I do go all the way up on the curb, and once I'm on that curb, I will apply the throttle again. If you're too aggressive with the throttle, you'll go too far out on the curb here on the outside, and if you go too far out, the car will bottom out. Now it's a drag race all the way down to turn 9, which can be a great overtaking opportunity, but for qualifying, stay on the left. I try and brake halfway between the screen and the 100 board here on the left, aiming for about 80% brake pressure, easing that off all the way to the inside curb. Cut as much curb as you can without hitting the anti-cuts on the inside. And once at the curb, we want to go full throttle again. And we want to get early on the throttle because the track is opening up a bit to us. And we should utilize that it is opening up for us. Now bring the car over to the right side of the track. Turn 11 is also a decent place to try and overtake. My braking marker is the 50 board here on the right. When I get on line with that, I'll go on the brake. Aiming for 80% brake pressure. Easing that off all the way to the inside curb. In the beginning, tracking out using all of the outside curb. Cutting the inside curb quite a bit. Once on that curb, I'll apply the throttle again. And using all of the curb on the outside. Turn 12 is not the easiest braking marker, but the curb changes texture just right here in front of us. When I get to that, I'll be on the brake. A quick hit to about 35% and easing off all the way to the curb on the inside. Cutting as much curb as we can without hitting the anti-cuts. Once past the curb, I'll apply the throttle again, using all of the room on the outside. Now bring the car over to the left side of the track. For turn 13, I use the curb as my braking marker. Once the curb starts, I'll be on the brake, aiming for about 90% brake pressure. Easing that off all the way to the inside curb. Getting up on the curb. Once at the curb, I'll apply the throttle again. Try not to be too aggressive, as you might spin one wheel, especially when taking the curb and using all of the available room on the outside. Turn 14 is going to be flat out. Just make sure you end up on the left side of the track for turn 15. Turn 15 is the last corner, and I try just before I get to the grey part of the curbing here in front. We're braking uphill, so we have a bit more grip available to us, but I aim for about 90% brake pressure. Easing that off all the way to the curb on the inside. I don't usually use the curb on the inside, but this one I did a little bit. But I think that made me spin the inside rear tire. But once at the curb, go full throttle again. Just make sure to let the car walk out to the left side of the track to maximize your exit speed. Since this is the start-finish straight, it's going to be a drag race all the way down to the start-finish line. And that's my lap around Navarra, the speed circuit, in the FF1600, of a time of 1 minute 48 seconds. I have more track guides for the FF1600 linked down below. Hopefully this one helped you. If it did, leave a like down below. Consider subscribing as well. And now for the uninterrupted hot laps.